Before I start yammering endlessly, I need to make a very important disclaimer. I am going to be summarizing the story for the 2023 novel Small Mercies by Devin Lehaney, and if you haven't read the book, please go read it. I need the watch time, put this video in the bookmarks or something, and I'm not just saying this for the token, oh guy, support the original creator of the work, no. You'd be doing yourself an incredible disservice if you first heard the story of Small Mercies from me and not from Devin Lehaney. The kind of book Small Mercies is, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic about American history, I didn't expect that it came out recently as I was reading it, no. I expected it came out sometime in the 1980s, right around the time the crisis that is the backdrop for the story in this book was happening. The Boston busing crisis. On June 21st, 1974, U.S. District Court Judge W. Arthur Garrity Jr. ruled in Morgan v. Hennigan that the Boston School Committee had, quote-unquote, systematically disadvantaged black school children in the public school system. The only remedy, the judge concluded, was to begin busing students between predominantly white and predominantly black neighborhoods, to desegregate the city's public high schools. The school in the neighborhood with the largest African American population was Roxbury High School. The school in the neighborhood with the largest white population was South Boston High School. It was decided that these two schools would switch a significant portion of their student bodies. This order was to take effect at the beginning of the school year on September 12, 1974. Students and parents had less than 90 days from the date of the ruling to prepare. It was very hot in Boston that summer, and it seldom rained. The book introduces us very quickly to the protagonist we're going to be talking about today. Mary Patricia Fennessy is a 4'11", 90-pound soaking wet, square-shouldered and square-jawed, self-described tough Southern Irish broad. She's dirt poor, living in the Boston projects. The opening scene of the book sees her fail to make coffee because the electricity is gone and she didn't pay the gas bill, so she doesn't get any. It is at least 2 weeks until she can save up enough money to have the gift of gas again. Times are tough for her, but she has got one thing going for her. Her daughter, that she loves very much. Jules is almost the opposite of Mary Pat, not in the economic sense. She's 17 and still lives with her mother, so she's still poor, but she's a lot softer, a lot more kind-hearted. Mary Pat often thinks to herself that if there's one good thing she did, it was giving birth to and raising Jules. She's proud of her. And she's proud of the fact that her daughter still has a heart in this place that wrenches the hearts out of people's chests and replaces them with rusted iron. It's part poverty and part tradition. Mary Pat works at an old folks home, cleaning up their shit and their shit-riddled bodies, and while it wasn't the best job you could ask for, it was something. She also has a black coworker, Dreamy. Now, why would I mention specifically that the coworker is black? Read the title of the video and figure it out, Buster. Dreamy is in the wrong part of town for her job. Even though what separates the white and black part is a mere 5-mile strip of road, one might as well have been out of the Milky Way on another planet with another species on it. Dreamy is what Mary and her co-workers call one of the good ones. She's a hard worker, darn it, not like the others like her. Now, you might have guessed this already, but Mary Patricia Fennessy, or Mary Pat for short, is not the typical shonen protagonist or even the typical gaming protagonist who's usually a bastard with a heart of gold. No, in fact, one of Mary Pat's major defining characteristics is that she does not like, and I believe the term is, colored people. Her racism has many excuses. In fact, she doesn't even think of it as racism. Oh no, she doesn't see race. Why, she's practically colorblind. That is, until she has to see her ex-husband with a black woman and immediately thinks, so this is who you left me for. This. Another thing about this book, and another reason why I was convinced that it couldn't have come out recently, is because the SPP, or the slurs per page ratio, really does go crazy here. Makes sense given the racial tensions at the time, but I suspect Devin was being a naughty boy and having a little too much fun writing this book. I fear we have wandered off the plot. Let's get back to it. In a book, as opposed to a TV show or a movie, we are privy to a character's inner monologues, sort of like anime but better because it's not cringe and it doesn't disrupt the pacing. So throughout the book, we see what Mary Pat thinks about black people and how she copes about it. She doesn't see color, oh no. Only that these colored folks keep slacking off, keep spreading drugs into their neighborhood, drugs that took her son's life. I mean, sure, the guy who sold him the drugs was white as sin, Georgie Dunbar, the local crime lord Marty Butler's mistress's son, but that doesn't matter. The source of the drugs had to be a black guy because that's what they do, right? Smoke and sell drugs all day. After all, Brian Shea, who is Mary Pat's close friend and a guy who works for Marty, assures her that they're doing whatever they can to keep the drugs out of the neighborhood, but these goddamn darkies just won't let up. And so goes Mary Pat's life. Miserable, but bearable because of Jules, until one day, when Jules leaves home with her supposed boyfriend Ronald Collins, or Rum for short. Now, you might be wondering how Ronald Collins abbreviates to Rum. It doesn't. They call him Rum because he acts like he's fucking drunk all the time. Jules does not come home that night. No problem. Mary Pat has had her own share of late nights out. She's probably just at her friend's place. She goes to work the next day expecting Jules to be back when she's back home, and she's not. She calls around, asks Jules' friends about her, and her friends all seem to be giving her a very rehearsed story with timestamps, which is fucking stupid anyway. Did they not discuss that all of them saying that George Dunbar got his tongue out to lick the paper of the blunt at exactly 11:15 p.m. would set off warning alarms? Mary Pat tries everything, and the first thing she tries is going to the people who are supposed to protect them and charge them for it in the guise of donation, the Marty Butler crew. She goes there, beats the shit out of Rum, and gets told off by Brian Shea. He assures her that if she gives them 24 hours, they will find her daughter. She agrees to give them until 5 the next morning. Then it's 6 a.m., and then 7, and then no news of her daughter. She flies into a rage, banging doors and beating folks up until she ends up inside Marty Butler's private residence, where people who enter do it with the knowledge that they might not leave alive. She soldiers on and into Marty's backyard, where Brian Shea and his friends are slick with sweat, carrying shovels and moving cement. Apparently, Mary Pat disturbed them while they were renovating the boss man's kitchen, and they don't like it one single bit. She gets told off again, a little more directly this time, and now we're introduced to the detectives assigned to the case. Now, at this point in the story, in a completely unrelated incident, Mary Pat's colored colleague, Dreamy, you'll remember, the only good black, has lost her kid. Apparently, he died falling on the train tracks, and even though no drugs were found on his person and he was never known to associate with drugs, the automatic assumption in South Boston, or Suddy as they like to call it, was that this was clearly a drug deal gone wrong. The black guy who killed this guy probably took the drugs. I mean, Dreamy is nice and all, but come on, he's a black man. You know how they are. The two detectives, Michael Cohen and Vince Pritchard, tell Mary Pat that the death of the black kid, Dreamy's son, Augie Williamson, wasn't that unrelated after all, and that 4 white kids were seen harassing him on the train station. Rum, Dunbar, Jules' friend Brenda, and finally, Jules herself. They were hurling slurs and insults at him right before he ended up dead, so they obviously want to interview Jules. They obviously also think that the mother might be hiding her daughter, but Mary Pat is doubly concerned now. 3 of the 4 witnesses to a crime make it back to the city. It becomes clear what happened to the 4th one. When she gets back to her apartment in the projects, Marty Butler is there with his flashy car. His henchman invites her into the car, an offer she literally cannot refuse. Marty tells her about the paint buckets he has for her apartment, takes her to a secluded place, and then he tells her about the money in a bag she's going to use to go live down in Florida for a while they paint her apartment. With tears streaming down her face and onto the money, she realizes what she'd already known. Her daughter is dead. Now from here on, Mary Pat goes on a warpath. She's had no luck with the people who are supposed to protect her and her daughter, so she goes to the witnesses. She kidnaps Rum in a closed diner, puts a box cutter to his balls, and tells him to confess. After spilling his guts to Mary Pat, he goes straight to the police to confess with shit, piss, and blood staining his trousers. Jules was there on the station that day, and so were they. They didn't do anything in particular. The black dude ran into an oncoming train and started convulsing on the floor. Rum trails off here. How did Augie end up on the tracks if he was on the station? Oh, and one more thing. Jules wasn't Rum's girlfriend. That was only a cover. She was Frankie Toomey's girl. Frankie Toomey, or the Tombstone as everyone in the neighborhood called him, was around 40 and married with kids. He was handsome, kind, bought the kids ice cream, helped the old ladies cross the road type of guy, you know. Everyone in the neighborhood loved him. He also had more bodies than the average graveyard, hence the nickname Tombstone. But the Suddies knew about that. They thought they knew he only killed out of necessity. What they didn't know was that he and Marty Butler lived by the axiom, it's called freshman year because it's the freshest during that year. On that day in the station, it was him. It was Frankie Toomey that told the kids to finish the job. What was he doing there? Well, Toomey might have ended up on the Epstein list, but he wasn't shooting blanks. Jules was pregnant. She was pregnant, upset, and demanding money to raise Frankie Toomey's kid. She called him, and when they were on the beach that night across the station, she called him and said if he didn't give her the money, She was going to tell his family. She called him before Augie Williamson's car broke down on the wrong night, in the wrong place, in front of the wrong kids. Before he made the grave mistake of asking a crying Jules if she was okay. Frankie arrived there in a pretty bad mood to see the four of them standing over a convulsing Augie. He told them to finish the job and took Jules with him in his car. What happens next is what Mary Pat is hoping to find out, telling Georgie Dunbar. George Dunbar is the local drug dealer, and from what Mary Pat can tell, the only reason he seems untouchable is because he's the son of Marty's girlfriend. The rest of the drug dealers, from what she knows, are hunted down by Marty Butler and his crew. Some end up in shallow graves by construction sites with needles stuck in their eyes. She knew that Marty and Brian weren't exactly law-abiding citizens. Hell, they weren't even good people, but she had trusted them to protect their own, and that's all she was looking for. That's why she put up with paying protection money, put up with nailing signs to boards for them for the anti-busing rally, went door to door to ask people to join in the rally in the sweltering Boston heat, and put up with the power dynamic bullshit. Protection for her child was not only denied to her, but it seemed very likely that her kid was hurt by those who were supposed to protect her. She was told that Jules went to Florida when she obviously didn't, and by this point she knows what happened to her. She just wants to know who did it, when they did it, how they did it, where they did it. First, she follows one of Georgie's friends to his place. She knows he uses these quote-unquote friends to distribute his drugs. She waits for him to leave, breaks into his place, trashes the drugs, and waits for the backlash at a safe distance. Once George is done giving a verbal lashing to his friend for losing the stash, he goes to a phone booth, and from his expression, seems like he's getting a verbal lashing of his own. She's close and she can feel it. She follows George Dunbar to his mother's house. He stands there for a while, and then he goes to a strange beach, and lo and behold, it's Brian Shea himself. He's telling George Dunbar that he's already lost a shipment and to deliver this one or he'll be dealt with. He's not family. He's just the son of the woman Marty likes to fuck. George heads over to the black neighborhood, and Mary Pat is confused. At first she thinks he made a mistake, being stressed out and all that, but he keeps going. She doesn't like it, but she follows him regardless. I think here's a passage from the book that really gives us some insight into our main character. It's midnight on a Sunday, but some streets are as lively as a block party. Coloreds mingling on their porches or gathered on the sidewalk around their cars. Other streets are dead quiet, not so much as an alley cat's meow to break up the stillness. She feels eyes on her everywhere, wonders if someone will just step in front of her car and scream, "White woman," before they descend on her and tear her limb from limb. That's what they do around here, isn't it? Wait for the unsuspecting honky, the disoriented whitey, the naive au fait, so they can show her who really owns these streets and how angry they truly feel. She has no idea why they hate her so, but she feels their hate in the looks she won't acknowledge, the looks she doesn't exactly see but knows are there, the looks that come from under the hoods of thick, sullen eyelids that clock her every movement. Look around, always dares her. She accepts the dare. Looks at the porches and stoops. No one's looking at her. No one's even aware she's there. They're not looking at George because George isn't there anymore either. After this bout of projection and fear, she has another one when she can't find George Dunbar. Luckily for her, she heard the name of the neighborhood and they have signs here. The shipment Brian Shea gave George Dunbar was being delivered to a violent black quote-unquote activist group. Why was Brian Shea delivering a shipment of something to these people? She had no idea. Next, George Dunbar heads up to a storage unit. He hides the other shipment in the back of his car there and fucks off for the night. Mary Pat breaks into the unit, and I will yet again have to read you the book because I don't think I can do it justice otherwise. The bag is unzipped and she can see right into it. But what she sees there doesn't compute. It should. What else had she thought could be in there, but still, it doesn't. There was a code in study. There was things you didn't do. You didn't rat. You never turned your back on a family member, even if you hated them. You never told anyone outside the neighborhood what was going on inside the neighborhood, and you never sold drugs. Never. Not ever. The bag was filled with drugs. Kilos of brown powder, kilos of white powder, bricks of pot, plastic tubs filled with pills. Those aren't George Dunbar's drugs. They've been given to him, entrusted to him by Brian Shea. These are Marty Butler's drugs. All these years, everyone has wondered why Marty and his crew can't keep the drugs out of Suddy, and now she knows the answer. Because they're the ones bringing the drugs in. They've been killing their own. They've been enslaving a whole generation of kids to the pills, to the mirror and the rolled up bill, to the needle and the spoon. Drugs didn't kill Noel. The Butler crew killed Noel. Just like they killed his father. Just like they killed his sister. The Butler crew killed Mary Pat's family. After this revelation, she makes a promise. Since Marty Butler killed her family, it was only fair that she gets to kill his. She waits for George Dunbar at the storage unit. When he arrives, she pulls a gun on him, shoots him up with his own heroin, the same one that killed her son, and tells him that if he ever wants to see those drugs again, he'll have to answer a few questions. He squeals a little for good form, but he doesn't want to die at the hands of Marty Butler or Mary Pat, so he gives in. First, he tells her that the shipment he gave to the black guys were guns. They're supposed to use it on white people and start a race war. Yay! Then, he starts ranting on about how Frankie Toomey and Brian Shea didn't know how to mix cement very well and it's gonna crack. At first, she's confused. George Dunbar's uncle has a cement mixing business, so she thinks he might be talking about that, but then it comes through. Loud and clear. A long, slow shake of his head. Not if you've never done it before. Not if you don't know what you're doing. Not if your basement is 85 fucking degrees on a summer day and you mixed it wrong anyway. So it's already cracking 5 minutes after it fucking dries. And it fucking dries 5 minutes after you lay it down. What you got then is a mess. Can't really get to what you're trying to seal over, but you haven't totally sealed it over either. I mean, it's there. What you tried to cover, it's like a fucking bug trapped in ice. And the fumes will knock you out. He slides down the side of the car and sits against the tire and looks off at nothing. I had this tricycle once. Metal. Heavy. Had a red seat. She waits for more. A point, perhaps, but that's all she's getting. George, she says. What were you trying to seal over? You said you were trying to seal something over in a hot basement. He drifts, and then it's as if her words finally reach him at the other end of a long tunnel. I wasn't the one who fucked up. No? Another slow head shake. I don't fucking make mistakes with cement. They did. Who? He licks his lips several times. You know. No, Marty and Frank. He stares at her through half-masked eyes. What about them? They tried to bury her in the basement, but they mixed the cement wrong, so they had to do it all over again. 2 thick veins, one on either side of Mary Pat's larynx, start to throb. Say her name. Jules. A lazy smile for her as the heroin bathes his inner body from head to toe. They had to bury her twice. She takes George Dunbar to his drugs as promised. She takes him to a bridge, tells him that the drugs are in the water, and he's free to look for them if he likes, or he could take the only realistic option he has left now and go to the police. She phones Detective Coyne and lets him know about the group with the guns trying to attack white folks to start a race war, and herself heads over to square her debt with Marty and Toomey. First, she sets fire to their main place of business. This, in turn, leads to an investigation which reveals that the places that Marty Butler does business in originally belonged to an old man that passed away under mysterious circumstances, with no close relatives or will. The federal authorities seize the assets, and that's blow 1. For her next act, she starts tailing Frankie Toomey. She tails him around, and right next to his home, when he gets out of his car, she tries to run him over. He tries to go to ground, but he's a second too late. She feels a little bump as her smooth tires crush Frankie Toomey's foot under the weight of her barely alive car she calls Bess. She gets out, points a gun at Frankie, and when he doesn't behave, she shoots him in the stomach. His wife and kids start wailing, the kid even trying to reach Mary Pat, but she warns the wife to keep it back, and so she does. She puts Frankie Toomey in the back of Bess and drives off to a lonely castle at the edge of Suddy where, after a long, hard drive up a very steep hill, Bess coughs for the last time. It's foreboding. With Bess still going through her death throes, Mary Pat takes Frankie Toomey inside the castle to question him about her daughter's death. Jules, he says, she was a problem. She was talking shit about telling my wife she was pregnant. She killed that kid, so. She didn't kill him. She was with them when he's shaking his head. She used the rock on him. It was her. She smashes her fist down on his shattered leg. The scream he lets out is like something from the animal kingdom. The speech of prey being eaten alive in the high grass. He topples to the dirt floor, lies there with his mouth open, eyes wide with shock. She didn't use the rock, she says. You're just trying to make shit up. You weren't even on the platform. Why would I make that up? He gasps. Tears fill his eyes when he says, please don't hit my leg again, but why would I make that up? How's it serve me? And of course I was on the platform. She doesn't say anything for a long time. She looks out at the parade grounds under the light of a half moon. I think he manages as he works his way into a sitting position. I think she did it as a small mercy. She looks back at him. What? Possibly, he says. Mercy from what? He doesn't say anything for a bit. Mercy from what? I told them to fry him. Huh? Throw him on the third rail, he explains. Fry him. Show the rest of the spooks in the city what happens if they come down to our part of town. He looks at the blood slowly consuming his coat and the tape she's wrapped around it. His skin is the blue white of mackerel. Jules didn't like that. She kept saying, let him go. He snorts. You couldn't let him go. No, I told them. Fuck that. Fry him. The boys, they listened. Boys do that. They picked the kid up and were about to toss him between the second and the third rail, and yeah, that's when she hit him. Which ended any idea that it was a fucking accident, thank you very much. He was dead the second he hit the ground. She watches him steadily, thinks it's odd how the worst of us look no different than the best of us. Like someone's son, someone's husband, someone's father. Loved. Capable of love. Human. And he couldn't forgive her, could ya? For the small mercy. He hisses against the pain for a moment. She was weak there. Where else would she be weak? In a police station? On the stand? I'm sorry, Mary Pat, but you know there's a code down here. Live and die by it. She reaches into her bag, comes out with a 38, and is about to blow his fucking brains all over the granite behind him when she hears a vehicle approaching. The car pulls into the fort, doors open, headlights sweep the parade grounds. Marty Butler calls. Time for a reckoning, Mary Pat. Then, in front of Marty Butler, she blows Frankie Toomey's neck out. Marty shrieks and she runs as Marty's men start trying to hunt her down. She gets Brian Shea, shoots him, and holds up in a shack. Unfortunately for her, Marty used to be a sniper. The bullet enters from under her armpit before she even knows what the fuck is going on. And instead of bleeding out, she decides to go out John Marston style with her pistol still in her hand, but not before she took out Brian Shea. Some of her final conversation is implying to an injured and soon-to-be dead Brian Shea that his boss was gay for Frankie Toomey because he shrieked like a little girl when she shot him. Mary Pat's story is almost a Greek tragedy. In the end, she's the hero that could not get the king. Marty Butler surrenders soon as the detectives show up, and Coyne can tell from his smug face that nothing is going to happen to him. She took a fair shot, though, and did enough damage. This version of Mary Pat paints her as heroic. Desperate, but heroic nonetheless. But here is the problem. Throughout the book, Mary Pat does not have nice things to say about who she calls colored folks, and by modern standards, she is practically the leader of the Fourth Reich. But like I mentioned, because this is a book, we are privy to Mary Pat's thoughts as opposed to just having to guess them through her actions. We know that her dislike for colored folks stems from ignorance. Well, that and the fact that her husband left her for one. Every time she gets proof to the opposite of her assumptions about black people, she just makes up another one. For her, letting go of her racism is like letting go of a core belief that's part of herself. She'd have to cut it out, and she can't bring herself to do it. I think the moment that finally something gets through to Mary Pat is when she goes to visit Augie Williamson's funeral, before she goes for Frankie Toomey. Mary Pat, reaching the kitchen, looks around for Dreamy. She just wants to express her condolences and get gone, but the first person she runs into is not Dreamy. It's Reginald. I just want to say, she begins. Fuck you want to say to me, he says. She looks closely at him, to be sure that he's the same Reginald she's met several times before. She's honestly not sure. Until his eulogy, she never heard him use profanity of any kind, assumed he might be the type that didn't believe in it. Bitch, I said, what do you want to say to me? She locks on his tie. She noticed it when he passed her pew on his way out of the church with his son's coffin. It's dark blue with light blue crosses on it. Definitely him. Did he just call me a bitch? I wanted to express my condolences. Oh, he says kindly. Oh, thank goodness. That means a lot. He touches her arm with his big black hand, gives it a light squeeze. What did you think I wanted? She asks. He squeezes her arm a little harder. Thought you wanted to explain why your moron hating daughter killed my intelligent, pure-hearted son. Can you let go of my arm? He squeezes even harder. Am I holding your arm? Yes. You sure? Yes. Sure it ain't just a circumstance like say you went and put your arm in my hand and I ain't got no choice but to squeeze what you put in my hand? Ain't that a possibility? No. No? He cocks his head at her. Well, I say it is. I say that whatever thought crosses my mind, Mrs. Fennessy, is the rule of the fucking law in this house. You want to complain? Take it up with me, right here, right now. You don't think I look in your eyes and know a tough bitch when I see one. I know you're a tough bitch. I know you could fuck many a man up, but I ain't that man. And you ain't in a place where you can afford to find out. Because if I were to, right fucking now, crush the windpipe of the mother of one of the demons who killed my child, a woman who trespassed into my home on the day of the funeral of my only son, if I were to do that, Miss Mary Pat Fennessy, I wouldn't go free, but I would have enough credit in prison for killing your ass to ensure I would live like a goddamn king for the rest of my days. Far worse than the pain of his fingers gripping her arm like the teeth of 5-socket wrenches is the hate in his eyes. She's a bit of an expert on hate. She's been around it her whole life, and his hate for her is truly depthless. Reginald, they turn to see Dreamy entering the kitchen. You let her go right now. Mary Pat will always remember these as a few of the most dangerous seconds of her life. She knows Reginald will choose one of only two roads: listening to his wife or doing something extremely violent, extremely fast. Mary Pat is certain that in the moment, if that man decides to kill her, he will succeed. He drops her arm. Get her out of my home, he says, and walks past his wife towards the deck. In front of the house, some mourners mingle, so Dreamy walks Mary Pat to the end of the block. They stop by a mailbox, its blue paint faded and chipping from exposure to the elements. Dreamy says, I'm sorry for... You don't have to apologize for that. He's angry. He didn't know what he was saying. Dreamy's eyes narrow at her. I'm not apologizing for Reginald. I stopped him from hurting you so my girls could have their father at home, not in some shithole prison. Mary Pat can't help but think. Dreamy gusses too. I was expressing my regret for your loss, Dreamy says. However I feel about your daughter or about you, Mrs. Fennessy, I don't think any mother deserves to lose a child, never mind two. And I'm sorry for your loss, Mary Pat manages. Don't. Dreamy holds up a hand. Do not speak of my son. He's dead because of you. Whoa, Mary Pat thinks. Hold on one fucking second there. I didn't kill your son, she says. No, Dreamy says. You raised a child who thought hating people because God made them a different shade of skin was okay. You allowed that hate. You probably fostered it. Your little child and her racist friends who were all raised by racist parents just like you was sent out into the world like little fucking hand grenades of hate and stupidity. And you can go fuck yourself, Mary Pat, if you think for 1 second I'm okay with that. Or that I forgive. I do not forgive. So go back to your neighborhood and sit with your monster friends and get yourselves all worked up to stop us from attending your precious school or whatever. But bitch, we're coming whether you like it or not. And we're gonna keep coming until you quit, not the other way around. And until then, get the fuck out of my neighborhood. And that's it. She's gone. Mary Pat stands by the mailbox and is mortified to realize that she's crying. Hot, actual tears stream down her face as she watches Calliope Williamson walk back up the block and disappear into her neat, well-tended home. I think Mary Pat's redemption is in her effort. She can't cut out her racist part. She grew up with it. She has strong convictions and it's just part and parcel of her, but she damn well tries by the end. Just like how she couldn't get the killer of her family, but she got his right and left hand. She was blazing and glowing so hard that she burned herself up in the process, and that is why the character flaws work in this one. Being a racist in 2026 is synonymous with being a Jew under Hitler's Germany, the key difference being that being a Jew isn't in of itself morally reprehensible, but either way, none of your appeals will ever be heard, you will not be empathized with, you will just be outcast or slaughtered, or just lose your job and raise a GoFundMe for $1 million. If it's America, anything can happen. Now, am I saying that you should empathize with all racists, even the ones that go out of their way to hurt the people they're racist against? No. What I am saying is that if you told me that you could put a book out in 2023 that could get you to root for a racist woman, a woman who wasn't part of the KKK but hated black people out of ignorance anyway, out of jealousy and out of a fear of the unknown, you would obviously be immediately canceled. But here's the book that manages to do it and do it justice to the intricacies of interracial conflicts in the process. It's natural that the author should lean this side or the other, but the leaning is surprisingly mostly absent from this one. I think Dennis Lehane not only wrote a fantastic story, but walked the tightrope very few, if any, can manage to walk. And I just wanted to bring some attention to it. Thank you guys for watching. And if you made it this far into this long-ass video, you obviously like what you're hearing. Okay, like the video. Subscribe if you want to hear more schizo ranting or media or book breakdowns. And I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.